Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another review for Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire. This is season 2, episode 2. They are back. And I'm talking about Claudia and Louis. They are now officially in Paris and they are in looking for more vampires still. But now it's a different era and they actually find them. They actually find a coven that is their own vampire gang, so to speak. They even ride around like biker gangs. We'll get into that a little bit later on in our breakdown of episode 3 and 2. But we're gonna go over episode 2 now, and I have here my co-host Bizzy Brown. What's up, Bizzy?
Hey, how you doing, man? Truly excited to go over this episode one. Like again, I said this in the other review, but it was great. The way that the episode ended with that monologue, that little like piece of dialogue between Louis and Claudia, I absolutely love that. So I mean, going into this episode, I was really excited to see how their dynamic was going to work due to how the first episode was primarily them kind of like being hesitant towards being with each other. Claudia wanted her distance. It was a little different, but this episode we kind of see that bond again, and I truly liked it. I loved it.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing about it is that Claudia is daring to excuse Louis' issues. Louis, unfortunately, he gravitates to people the wrong way, and she realizes it, but she loves him regardless. And I think she's trying to break bread with him while trying to find her people. Like that's really her end goal. She doesn't want to feel alone, and so they get to this location. I think the club is kind of like the Vampire Inn or something like that. It's a weird
It's
little
like
place.
S vampires or Des vampires. It was like in a different language.
Yeah, and there they actually have like a theatrical performance that's going on where actual vampires are posing as fake vampires and they're going through and basically torturing humans for their own amusement. And the
Mhm.
humans are just eating it up. Like it is so down.
That's such a dad pun. I love it. I know you didn't do it intentionally, but
What?
eating up. You said, "Oh, the humans are eating it up." Like that's hilarious.
Oh yeah, that was not intentional at all. Um,
But yeah,
but
no. To second that, for them to have this whole cover, which of course being in this world, it's really cool to see how creative they can get with how some of these people are like, oh yeah, some people just go on a hunt, quickly take one person, call it a day. They do it fast enough, they're not a suspect. But they have this whole organized, thing like where they're throwing in like they're literally people are paying to be eaten. So
yeah,
these people are paying to get into the theater and then they are being made a fool of. So to see how they're doing it, and these vampires aren't just eating or they're not just doing this to survive. They're having fun with this. Like this is
yeah,
something that they're enjoying. So of course we know things are gonna go down, but like I am nervous because we knew Lestat was crazy. But this is gonna be a whole different deal because these dudes, they feel justified. They don't have any remorse. They think this is great. They're laughing. They're having a good
mhm,
time. It's gonna be great to see how this kind of falls apart. But I really enjoyed this to see how excited they were to do this. We get that moment with I'm bad with names, but when the guy that looks the oldest but is actually the youngest, when he ends up
yeah,
kind of when he starts flying, if you will,
uh,
um like, they're just like you can see the rope behind him, but the rope's not, like, dragging anything, like, it's not pulling anything,
right.
and, of course, Claudia mentions that right away, and to see kind of, like, them being able to notice that right away, and they're like, "He's actually flying." It was just such a cool little thing because like, they're just having so fun with the showmanship. I don't know, it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I mean, we saw a little bit like even the last episode, like a lot of these vampires are a lot older. They've got different abilities. And now we know that Lestat was able to do different things. But this vampire is very precise. And a lot of his mannerisms reminded us of Lestat. And so they get back to the very back and they start talking or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, you American vampires!" Like, da, da, da. And then they were just trying to do a little ruse to try to rile them up. All for Claudia to kind of like, yeah. She looks like, oh well, like let's do this other thing. Like me and Louis, we gotta do.
Now, because before that, they were talking about, okay, who was the one who turned you? And Louis was gonna go up like
Yeah,
straight up and be like, hey, it was my boy, it was my boy Lestat. But of course, Claudia was like, his name was like Brian, like Brian or something, or Bruce,
Yeah,
Bruce. She's like, which is kind of funny, Bruce, Batman. I didn't really connect the dots, but I feel like that was intentional. No, am I wrong? Being Bruce, but I don't know. I think I'm just tired. But that was funny. But diving into that, of course, Claudia is the one who's been thinking. It's so funny because she looks so young, but you were mentioning this, and I mentioned this in the reaction as well. She carries herself. The actress is doing such a great job carrying herself like someone who's been around for quite some time.
yeah,
We were saying she gives auntie vibes because of just the way she was talking, the way her energy was. It was great. I absolutely love what this actress is doing. Of course, Bailey was phenomenal. They both were phenomenal. But it's really cool to see the torch being passed to someone who's doing like an equally amazing job. And I'm still like holding out really hope. There's still a lot of episodes left, but I'm really excited to see what she does with this character. But of course, after we have that whole moment, we had this whole like biker gang moment, which I loved.
yeah.
But it led into them going to this mansion, this whole party, which I
Mhm.
don't. I think I mentioned this to you, but they actually showed this scene at Comic Con, which
I
was like
didn't
one
see
of
it.
the only scenes that they had like available, which
Wow.
I thought was fantastic. When I got to see it at Comic Con, I loved it, and it was just so cool. So to see the context of it and where it was placed in this series, I feel like they handled it really perfectly. I mean, to see how they go about having their meals, because of course they already have this way with the theater, but now they're going out here to like parties and they're just munching on people out here. It just seems more of like an activity, more for fun than it is for the actual meal. You know.
Yeah, I think this guy's name is Santiago. Is that right? Does that sound right?
Honestly, I am blanking out entirely.
I think his name is Santiago. And Santiago, he has this way about just I don't even know how to describe it. Like Lestat, you know that he's being intentionally malicious. Santiago, he just indulges in this finding ways of making humans look less than in any way possible. And he because even when they see kind of like the different moments where they're having these different plays and he's drawing people in and having them submit to him, it gave Dracula vibes to it, and he enjoys kind of putting people under his submission. And especially when we were at the house, like he just was just all in it. But the weird thing is that Claudia admires him. She loves it. Like she's like, "Oh yeah, like we're empowered. Like these are our people. Like we don't deserve to be considered less than." Because she went through her own unfortunate trials when she was being when she was coming out before she became a vampire. Like she was literally tortured and put into a lot of different bad situations. And so like she's just mowing house. But the way that they shot that scene with the house was insane. Cause they God, I'm spacing on his name. God, what is his name?
Oh, what does it look like? We talking about Louis? We
Armand.
talking about Armand?
Armand. When Armand
Pretty
and
bad, man.
Louis are having the conversation
Yeah.
outside, and they're kind of like nonchalantly just going back and forth talking about like their thoughts on this and like why don't you do that? Like, and Louis is like, no, I'm good. I just want to take some pictures, man. I've killed enough people, and he was kind of like, well, killing and evil is subjective. Like some people go and do this, and they're justifying what they're doing. Both of them. Like Louis chosen, like I don't want to go and dive down that road because I see where it leads, and he's basically saying like, nah, I think you need to kind of look at a different lens while they're getting lost within each other's eyes. And so it's so weird. And the interesting thing about it in the real world, present day, Daniel is fed up with Armand and Louis because they've already had the last episode before. They were already kind of talking like, we want to kind of be the driving force of how this narrative needs to go. And I thought, honestly, I really have not really liked Armand. I felt like he's just been this third wheel that I don't understand, and he's just been spinning his own narrative. We'll get into more in the third episode that we can't talk about here. But in this episode, he legitimately was a little frazzled because by the end of the episode, Louis had an emotional reaction. And it's just interesting how Daniel capitalized on it, but they were like, okay, well, next time I'm gonna have your back, kind of. But did you want to talk a little bit towards how the episode ended? Um,
With the Lestat thing, right? Yeah, yeah. So that was interesting. We knew Lestat was gonna come back around. We knew that his character wasn't done. The actor, everything like they did such a good job with him in the first season. It would be an absolute fumble not to have him return. Again, I haven't read the books. I don't know how any of this plays out. Maybe this is how it happens. All I know is that you need to have this dude return. And to have that moment where you look at the painting and you see, wait a second, we know that guy. It makes Claudia's decision making like S tier. For her to be like, yeah, his name was Bruce. Such a good catch. Because that could have gone wrong
very quickly.
so quickly. It
Yep.
would have been nuts. But cool little reveal. Makes sense. I was surprised, but at the same time, it's kind of one of those things that you kind of expect in a sense. So
Yeah.
it was at the end of the day, it was really cool that it happened. But yeah,
Yeah. And like my 2 cents on it is that if she if they would have went down the route that Louis always goes on, just kind of letting loose lips sink ships, they would have, because for their coven, if you kill one of your own, you're going to be killed or tortured or worse. And so it would have been like, oh, wait, you know this, that? Like, what happened to him? Like, oh, well, he was a narcissist. He was crazy. He was torturing us. He was forcing us into loving him. And we had to put him down. And they probably would have been like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then they would have been like just killing them. And
it would
so
have been bad.
it's so interesting how she's always one step ahead. I'm talking about Claudia,
Yeah,
but she's always 2 steps behind, because as much as she is so smart, her need to want to be loved and
her
belong
need to belong, exactly belong.
is always catching her up. Unfortunately, like it's always
100%. It's gonna be her Achilles heel. The fact that she knows she's loved by Louis, but that's not enough.
it's not.
She needs something more. When Louis had Lestat, that was a big problem for her because she didn't have anybody. I mean, if I remember straight, she wanted to turn somebody so she could have somebody. But to finally have, obviously she had a family in Louis, but to have such a big family, to have people that are like her, people that like, of course, Louis is a vampire, but not the traditional sense. Everyone here in this gang is what you kind of envision a vampire to be, bloodthirsty, going after these people. So like this is what she feels as though this is what she connects to. So again, I feel like it's her Achilles heel. It's gonna end up biting her in the neck because at the end of the day, she's a genius.
Biting
She's
her in the
smart.
neck. That's hilarious.
She's a genius. So I honestly believe that this is the one thing that's gonna slow her down. Because like you said, she's always 2 steps ahead, but this is gonna be a problem. So I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, there's also one thing that happens. The moment that Louis realizes that it is the stat, he has an emotional reaction. he this whole entire the past 2 episodes, he hasn't even really said his name, even if he's kind of like been showing up like in his subconscious, what we think is his subconscious. My theory is actually the stops messing with him, but we'll get to that later. And when he realizes what it is and who he is, like he goes back to his little red room because he's been doing pictures. He's been taking pictures, and that's been his place of peace.
Yeah, it's
He
like
went
the
back
little
to his
dark
red
room,
room, tripping balls, and he couldn't deal with the fact of he's still connected to this man, and he goes and needs to know that Lestat is dead so much. He goes back to a broker and checks on, like, all right, well, I know he has possessions here. Can you confirm whether or not he's dead? And the guy is basically like, oh, I know who you are. Like, well, it's been long enough. Here you go. And I was just like, yo, this is a plant by Lestat. Like, he's torturing this man from the grave or just intentionally torturing him. And what it does is it compromises him because, like, one, like, dude, you are becoming so sus trying to make sure that this man is gone and buried, that now you compromise yourself and Claudia. And then they go back and then they do the little biker thing, and he takes pictures of them riding and stuff like that, which is fun. But in present day, before we even get to them going to the house, Daniel was like, "Oh, this is just so ridiculous. How are you going to tell me Lestat is the person that's, the in between this and that?" And Louis, for the first time, loses his cool. Louis basically goes into Daniel's mind and starts pulling threads about his relationship, about his wife, how he didn't do this, and you can see Daniel like shaking because like normally Daniel, he doesn't care about dying, but they haven't necessarily been torturing him, quote unquote. They've been using him. And in this moment, like Louis has lost his composure and starts coming at him. And it's weird because I thought Arman was doubling down, but Arman kind of asked a random trigger question that eventually kind of subverts the questions. And then they kind of like continue it on. But it was like to put Daniel in check. And that was the first time since season 1, the end of season 1, where I felt like Daniel was like kind of terrified.
He's in trouble.
And it's kind of like, I don't know how this is going to end for Daniel. I this whole entire time I'm like, Daniel's going to die, like giving them the story they need, but that may not happen. It may be much worse for Daniel by the end of this, to be honest.
No, for sure. For sure. I'm a little anxious to see how it plays out, but at the end of the day, Daniel's been extremely reckless with the way he talks, with the way he says things, because he's not afraid to die. But I mean, it's like, I honestly don't expect to finish the show with him alive. That's definitely how I feel.
Yeah. And the way the episode ends is like we were saying, that they kill pretty much everybody in the mansion. Louis and Arman have their moment together. And Louis, even though he's agitated and even though he is trying to embrace this coven, he can't get with it. And literally the shot is him driving off with them and the place is burning down. And somebody's literally running out the house burning alive.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me that he still feels so much remorse, even though he said, "I've killed 7,000 people." But I guess the thing is, and we had this conversation when you and me, Bizzy, it's like, I know for a fact Lestat could care less how many people he's killed. It's probably, tripled or 10 times that many as Louis. But Louis is counting because he does care. He's holding towards that piece of his humanity. And that's why I guess he's trying to do this, to maintain his memory, because I guess it's a part of his humanity. But it was a good episode. I thought they did a really good job with it. You have any closing remarks on the episode?
No, I again, I think we're off to a great start when it comes to the season as a whole. It's like, it seems to be like the final scene seems to be the banger. I mean, like I said, episode 1, I still believe this is it's my favorite scene, one of my favorite scenes of the entire series. Just that speech by Louis was just fantastic. And then leading into this, we got the Lestat reveal. On top of that, the whole, mansion scene, which again, I did see, but I saw it out of context, like without any like kind of reasoning behind it. And to see the entire episode build up to that moment made it even more, impactful for me, which I did enjoy it a little more. And I'm excited to see how the next episode plays out for sure.
Yeah. So ratings, what do you rate this one? 8F.
I'm gonna give it a B+. B+, A-. It's in that area.
Yeah, I'm at a A- for this one. First episode was a banger, and this was about. So I think they did a really good job with it. But yeah, Bizzy, where can everybody find your content?
Bizzy Braun everywhere. You can find my Bizzy Reactions on Instagram, and then you can find me doing reviews over here on this channel.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're gonna go, guys. Go and check out our review for episode 3 when it drops. We got more content coming. Definitely go and check out Bizzy's channel because you want to.
If you want to see reactions for this show, head over there.
Yeah, you'll see me over there, among doing other things. We're gonna go. Peace, people.
We're watching.
Filing out the top of the I can see skyline, 50 mile radius on my timeline. Ain't nothing on my